You see, we live in a world where people measure their worth by the number of friends on their social media, the number of people they can text at midnight, or the number of invitations they receive to parties. But let me tell you a truth sometimes: the most powerful, the most unstoppable, the most extraordinary woman is the woman who walks alone. When we say solitude is power, we are not talking about isolation that drains you. We are talking about a kind of sacred silence that allows you to hear your own heart beating louder than the noise of the world. Think about this. Every single day we are bombarded by voices, opinions, expectations, and demands. The phone never stops buzzing, the notifications keep flashing. People around us always have something to say about how we should live, what we should wear, what we should think. It is easy to get lost in that noise. But when a woman chooses solitude, when she sits in that quiet space with no friends around, she is not lacking connection. She is stepping into a deeper connection with herself. That connection is where true power begins. Imagine a woman who wakes up on a Sunday morning with no one to call, no brunch dates, no gossip circles, no endless small talk. At first, many would pity her. But she sees it differently. She takes that time to journal, to read something that expands her mind, to walk in the park and actually hear the sound of the wind moving through the trees. In those moments, she realizes she is not alone. She is accompanied by life itself. She begins to sense a strength rising inside her, a strength that doesn't need applause, doesn't need approval, doesn't need an audience. That strength is the quiet flame of power that solitude ignites. Think about great thinkers, visionaries, and creators in history. Most of them had seasons of solitude. Writers lock themselves away to produce their best work. Artists withdraw from the crowd to paint or sculpt something eternal. Leaders and innovators often distance themselves from common distractions so they can see possibilities others cannot. This is not weakness. It is the practice of tuning in to higher frequencies that most people never hear because they are too busy drowning in chatter. A woman with no friends may look like she is missing out, but she is actually tuning in to herself, to her intuition, to the whispers of life that guide her toward her true destiny. Now think about everyday examples. When a woman is constantly surrounded by friends, she might adopt their habits, their thinking, their choices just to belong. She might eat what they eat, watch what they watch, chase what they chase. Slowly, she loses the edges of her individuality. But when she is alone, she gets to ask herself, what do I really want? What excites me? What do I truly believe in? That reflection is not possible when you are constantly lost in the crowd. Solitude gives her the courage to define her own standards, to create her own lifestyle, to build her own path without being shaped like clay by other people's hands. It takes courage to be a woman with no friends in a society that worships popularity. But that courage turns into power. It is the power to say no when everyone else says yes. It is the power to rise early and work on a dream when no one is clapping. It is the power to trust her vision even when nobody else can see it. Solitude trains her to rely on herself, to master herself, and to direct her own energy instead of scattering it in 100 directions. This is why solitude is not empty. It is a training ground for greatness. Picture this again in a daily scene. She is sitting at home on a Friday night, maybe with a cup of tea, maybe with her laptop open, maybe with a notebook in hand. She is not posting selfies to prove she's having fun. She is not waiting for someone else to validate her evening. Instead, she is planning, learning, writing, dreaming. In that quiet space, she is rewriting her story. And one day, when she steps out into the world, people will wonder, how did she become so strong, so centered, so magnetic? They won't know the answer lies in those nights of solitude where she built herself in silence. Solitude teaches her one of the greatest secrets. She is enough. Without a crowd, without constant chatter, without social validation, she learns that she is whole as she is. That realization alone makes her unshakable. People who depend on others for self-worth can be broken when others leave. But a woman who has mastered solitude cannot be broken because her worth comes from within. She is like a tree whose roots go deep into the ground. Storms may come, winds may shake, but she stands tall, firm, and unmovable. So solitude is not a punishment, it is preparation. It is not weakness, it is wisdom. A woman with no friends is not empty. She is full of herself in the most powerful way. She is building inner muscles that no one can see. She is aligning with her true self. She is learning to love her own company, and when you love your own company, you are never truly alone. And here is the paradox: when she has mastered solitude, when she has embraced her own wholeness, she will no longer seek friends from a place of neediness. Instead, she will attract people who resonate with her authenticity. She won't be chasing company, she will be magnetizing it. That is the real power of solitude. It makes her complete on her own, and from that completeness, she creates deeper, more genuine connections when the time is right. That is why solitude is power. It transforms emptiness into fullness, loneliness into strength, silence into clarity. And a woman with no friends is not someone to pity, she is someone to respect, because she has chosen the courageous path of meeting herself, loving herself, and becoming her own source of power. Noise versus silence. This is a battlefield that every human faces, but only a few are aware of. We live in a society where noise is everywhere, and not just the noise of traffic or machines. It's the noise of endless conversations that mean nothing, the chatter of people who judge, compare, and complain, the constant buzzing of phones, and the flood of opinions that try to shape who we are. A woman with no friends may look like she is missing the music of companionship, but in truth, she has escaped the trap of noise and stepped into the healing power of silence. Think about how most people live their daily lives. They wake up and the first thing they reach for is their phone. Immediately, the noise begins: messages, notifications, updates, gossip, people wanting attention. Their mind is already occupied with what others are saying and thinking. Then they go out into the world, meet friends or colleagues, and the conversations are often about drama, about who did what, about meaningless distractions. Their energy is drained by words that don't build them but slowly chip away at their focus and peace. This is the reality of noise. It is not just external, it invades the mind and steals clarity. Now imagine a woman who doesn't have that circle of constant chatter. She wakes up, and instead of rushing to reply to meaningless conversations, she listens to her own thoughts. She hears her inner voice before she hears the world's voice. That silence becomes her advantage. She goes for a walk, and instead of being lost in gossip, she notices the sky, the way the morning sun paints golden light on the world. Her silence allows her to see life more clearly. Where others drown in noise, she breathes in peace. That peace gives her energy, sharpens her awareness, and keeps her focused on what truly matters. There is something deeply magnetic about silence. Noise scatters your energy in 100 directions, but silence gathers it back into your core. When a woman chooses silence over noise, her mind becomes sharper. She can reflect, she can plan, she can dream without interference. For example, think of someone trying to study in a room full of loud chatter. It's almost impossible to focus. But in a quiet room, the mind absorbs, creates, and grows. Life works the same way. Noise from others keeps you distracted from your true path, but silence allows you to hear the whispers of your destiny. Daily life provides countless examples. A woman who spends time with noisy friends may hear them say things like, "Don't chase that dream, it's too risky," or "Why are you trying so hard? Just settle like everyone else." These words may seem casual, but they plant seeds of doubt. Over time, they become walls in her mind. Now, imagine the same woman walking alone in silence. She doesn't hear their doubts. Instead, she hears her own inner encouragement. She starts telling herself, "I am capable. I can do this. My path is mine to create." That shift is monumental. Noise limits her, but silence liberates her. In silence, creativity blooms. Writers, thinkers, inventors, and leaders often seek solitude because they know silence awakens ideas. A woman with no friends has that same gift. Without constant distraction, she can create something extraordinary. Maybe she starts writing her own story. Maybe she begins a business. Maybe she paints or learns a new skill. The silence gives her space to birth something new. When others waste time in noisy chatter, she uses silence as the soil where her future grows. Let's picture another everyday scene. A woman sitting with noisy friends spends hours laughing at jokes, gossiping about others, and complaining about life. When the night ends, she feels drained, as though her time has been stolen. But a woman in silence spends that same time reading a powerful book, meditating, or simply enjoying her own company. When her night ends, she feels nourished, stronger, clearer. The difference is enormous. Noise takes, silence gives. There is also another power in silence, the power of observation. When you are not constantly talking or engaging in noise, you begin to see people and life more deeply. You notice patterns, behaviors, truths that others miss. A woman with no friends often becomes highly intuitive because she spends more time watching than speaking. In her silence, she understands who can be trusted, who is genuine, who is fake. That awareness protects her. Noise blinds people, but silence sharpens vision. And perhaps the greatest gift of silence is peace. In noise, the heart feels restless. There is always comparison, always judgment, always distraction. But in silence, the heart finds rest. A woman who has no friends may sit quietly on her own, but inside she is calm. That calm is priceless. It is the kind of inner stillness that allows her to walk through storms without being shaken. While others panic because their worth depends on noise and approval, she remains steady because her worth is rooted in silence and self-connection. So noise versus silence is not just about sound. It is about energy, focus, and the quality of life. Noise steals your attention, silence returns it. Noise scatters you, silence gathers you. Noise drains you, silence restores you. And the woman with no friends has chosen the side of silence, and that choice gives her clarity, strength, and direction that most people never experience. That is why she is not weak, she is wise. She has escaped the prison of noise and embraced the freedom of silence. Meeting yourself is one of the most profound journeys a person can ever take, and yet it is the one journey many people avoid their whole lives. Most people are comfortable meeting everyone else, friends, colleagues, strangers on the street, but when it comes to sitting in silence and truly facing themselves, they run. They fill their lives with distractions, endless conversations, social media scrolling, or constant activity, just so they never have to look in the mirror of their own soul. But a woman with no friends is gifted with this rare opportunity. She is forced into that silence where she cannot escape her own presence. And in that space, she begins to meet the most important person she will ever know, herself. When you meet yourself, you discover truths you never realized. It's like walking into a room you've lived in for years but never turned the lights on. Suddenly, the darkness lifts and you see corners, colors, and details that were always there but hidden. A woman sitting alone with no distractions begins to notice her real feelings, her real thoughts, her hidden desires, and her suppressed fears. She realizes that some of the things she has been chasing were not even her own dreams. They were planted there by society, family, or friends. In solitude, she asks, "What do I actually want?" That single question can change her entire life because it awakens authenticity. Daily life offers simple but powerful examples. A woman who spends all her free time with friends may eat what they eat, watch what they watch, and talk about what they talk about. She blends into the group, and though she may laugh, deep down she may feel a quiet emptiness. But a woman who sits by herself for dinner, maybe at her own kitchen table or in a small cafe, hears a different voice. As she eats alone, she is not just tasting food, she is tasting her independence. She is realizing that she can enjoy life even without the noise of others. In that small act, she is meeting herself. Meeting yourself also means confronting the parts of you that you've ignored. When friends surround you, you can hide behind laughter, chatter, or business. But when you are alone, those buried emotions rise. Maybe you realize you have wounds you never healed, or dreams you abandoned, or fears you never admitted. At first, this can feel uncomfortable, even painful. But facing those truths is the beginning of real strength. It is like cleaning a wound, unpleasant in the moment, but necessary for true healing. A woman who meets herself in solitude learns to stop running from her pain and instead transforms it into wisdom. Another everyday example is the way silence changes the mind. A woman with friends may spend hours talking about the lives of others, who is succeeding, who is failing, who is in love, who is heartbroken. But when she is alone, the focus shifts inward. She is no longer analyzing others, she is listening to herself. She begins to hear her own ideas bubbling up, her own creativity asking for expression, her own passions reminding her of what makes her heart race. It could be as simple as rediscovering her love for writing, drawing, or learning something new. That is what happens when you meet yourself. You unlock doors to parts of your soul that you forgot existed. Meeting yourself also builds confidence. When you spend time alone and discover who you are, you no longer rely on the crowd to tell you what to think or how to feel. Imagine a woman who always went shopping with friends. Their opinions influenced every choice, what she wore, what she bought, what she liked. Then one day she goes shopping alone. At first it feels strange, but as she tries on clothes, she begins to ask, do I like this? Or was I just told to like this? Slowly, she learns her own taste, her own preferences. That small moment of independence becomes a lesson in self-trust. She is meeting herself even in the simplest choices, and it makes her stronger. When you meet yourself, you also learn self-love. Many people say they love themselves, but they cannot even sit in their own company for an hour without reaching for a distraction. True self-love shows when you enjoy your own presence. Think of a woman who goes to the movies alone or takes herself out on a quiet walk. Others may look at her and feel sorry, but she is actually practicing one of the greatest acts of love, showing herself that she is enough. She doesn't need validation or constant company to feel alive. She is discovering that she can be her own best friend, her own greatest supporter, her own safe space. Meeting yourself is also about unlocking resilience. Life will test everyone with seasons of loneliness, heartbreak, or disappointment. A woman who has never faced herself may crumble when those storms come because she never built her inner foundation. But a woman who has already walked the path of solitude and met herself in silence stands strong. She knows who she is. She knows her worth. She knows she can survive without the crowd because she has learned to draw power from within. So when a woman with no friends sits in her solitude, she is not to be pitied. She is doing the courageous work of meeting herself, of peeling away all the masks she wore to please others, of facing her truth and embracing it. This journey may not be glamorous on the outside. There are no crowds cheering, no applause. But inside, it is a revolution. She is becoming whole. She is becoming authentic. And when she finally steps into the world with this self-knowledge, she radiates a strength that no one can shake. Meeting yourself is not easy, but it is necessary. It is the bridge between the person you thought you were and the person you are meant to become. And the woman who has no friends walks that bridge every day, guided not by the voices of others, but by the voice of her own soul. That is why meeting yourself is the greatest gift solitude can ever give. Energy is the most valuable currency you have. You can lose money and earn it back. You can lose things and replace them. But the energy you spend is gone forever. Every thought you think, every word you speak, every conversation you engage in, these are transactions of energy. Most people don't realize this, and they give away their energy carelessly to anyone and anything that demands their attention. But a woman with no friends has the rare gift of redirecting her energy. Instead of scattering it outward in gossip drama or endless socializing, she gathers it inward and invests it in herself. This shift is what separates those who live average lives from those who rise to extraordinary ones. Imagine someone who spends their entire day surrounded by friends. She listens to their problems, she carries their burdens, she joins in their conversations even when they lead nowhere. At the end of the day, she feels drained, tired, and heavy, as if she has run a marathon without ever leaving her seat. Why? Because her energy was consumed by others. Now, picture another woman, the one who has no circle to pull her in different directions. She finishes her day and sits quietly with herself. She may open a book, learn a new skill, or work on a project. She is not giving her energy away, she is recycling it into her own growth. That energy shift becomes her strength, her clarity, her secret weapon. Energy is like water. If you keep pouring it into everyone else's cup, your own cup runs dry. But when you learn to keep your water, to nourish your own roots, first you grow stronger. A woman with no friends is not wasting her precious hours listening to meaningless chatter or fueling cycles of negativity. She is watering her own garden. Over time, her life begins to bloom in ways that others cannot understand. While they are busy feeding drama, she is feeding dreams. That is the power of an energy shift. Think of a daily life example. A group of friends spends hours complaining about their jobs, criticizing their coworkers, and gossiping about people they don't even know. They leave that conversation no better than when they started, actually worse, because their minds are filled with negativity. But a woman who has no such company uses that same time to learn a new skill online, maybe to practice a language, maybe to exercise, maybe to write in a journal. The energy that could have been wasted in complaint is now redirected into something constructive. At first, the difference looks small, but over weeks and months, the results become clear. She has grown, improved, and expanded while others are stuck in the same place. Energy is also emotional. When you surround yourself with many people, you pick up their emotions unconsciously. If they are anxious, you feel anxious. If they are angry, you feel heavy. This is why so many people feel drained after spending time in certain groups. But a woman with no friends protects herself from that invisible energy theft. In her solitude, she sets the tone of her own emotions. She may choose peace, joy, or focus, and she maintains it without interference. That emotional control is rare, and it comes only when you guard where your energy flows. Another example, imagine a woman who is always available to her friends. Whenever they call, she listens, comforts, or entertains them. She thinks she is being kind, but slowly she loses touch with her own needs. She stops exercising, she delays her goals, she sacrifices her time, and she feels exhausted. Compare this to the woman who has no such demands. Her evenings are hers. She uses them to take care of her body, to meditate, to rest, or to create. By saying no to constant demands, she says yes to herself. That is the essence of the energy shift, taking back the power of choice over where your energy goes. This shift also transforms her confidence. When you invest energy in others constantly, you may feel needed, but you rarely feel fulfilled. When you invest energy in yourself, into your mind, your dreams, your passions, you feel stronger, more alive, more certain of your path. A woman with no friends is not desperate for validation because her energy is not being drained outward, it is building her inward. She becomes a source, not a seeker. Others may eventually come to her, attracted to her strength, but she is no longer dependent on them. Consider the simple act of conversation. Hours spent talking to friends about trivial things may seem harmless, but words carry energy. Every complaint drains you. Every piece of gossip ties you into negativity. But silence, focus, and intentional speech conserve energy. A woman with no friends is not wasting her words or her time. She speaks to herself with encouragement. She speaks to her goals with determination. She speaks to life with gratitude. That redirection of language shifts her energy completely. And over time, energy builds momentum. Just like money invested grows with interest, energy invested in yourself compounds. The woman who chooses solitude may spend 1 hour reading today, 1 hour exercising tomorrow, 1 hour meditating the next. Each small choice adds up. Months later, she has more knowledge, more health, more peace than those who poured their energy into endless social noise. People begin to notice her glow, her strength, her focus, and they wonder what her secret is. The secret is not external. It is the simple but powerful shift of energy from outward distraction to inward growth. Energy is life. Where you spend it determines the quality of your existence. A woman with no friends has been given the chance to guard her energy like a treasure. She doesn't waste it in circles that don't move her forward. She channels it into her own evolution. And in that process, she discovers something priceless. Her energy, once fully hers, can light up her entire path.